ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वैदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदे गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः।
ॐ नारायणः परो व्यक्तात् अण्डमव्ययसम्भवम् अण्डस्यान्तस्त्रिमे लोकाः सप्तद्वीपा च मेदिनी ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। Chapter 2, verse 53. Not 53. 53 we have finished. स्थितप्रज्ञस्य का भाषा समाधिस्थस्य केशव स्थितधीः किं प्रभाषेत किमासीत व्रजेत किम् स्थितप्रज्ञस्य का भाषा समाधिस्थस्य केशव स्थितधीः किं प्रभाषेत किमासीत व्रजेत किम् स्थितप्रज्ञा, a person who is established, so to speak, in the knowledge. Established means what? Has an unswerving understanding of the I as free of sorrow, pain, and all fear and other afflictions. And what do we mean by unswerving? Because everybody in the course of their lives have this kind of a understanding. This because it is true, it is you. It is not anybody else, it is you. That sthita prajna is potentially you. So the prajna is there. Prajna means the knowledge that this is not how I'm supposed to be. I'm not supposed to be whining all the time. And I'm not supposed to be reactive all the time. I'm not supposed to be upset all the time. This everybody knows. Everybody has a potential to be a sthita prajna. And everybody has this prajna, this knowledge that I am not the sum total of this body, mind, sense complex. There is something more to this. Everybody knows this. But this understanding is what is called in Sanskritam Agamapayi. Agamapayi means comes and goes. 1 minute, everything is wonderful. Half a day, everything is wonderful. And then I say, yay, I got it. And when I say yay and put the hands up, there is a catch in the shoulder. Okay. And then it's not so yay after all. This is the situation. So morning, okay. Afternoon, iffy. Evening, terrible. And then again night, all right. And then morning, grumpy. and then afternoon cranky, evening suddenly ecstatic, and then a night again crashed. Wasn't even in touch with who I am. And so this is the how life proceeds. And in the beginning, especially when one is emotionally not mature and not what is that connected to one's spiritual growth, not prioritizing it at all. When one is not doing that, then there is some kind of a mystery about how these moments of whatever you want to call them, happiness, peace, etc., how come they come and how come they go as soon as they have arrived. Happiness for the masses seems very, very elusive, and that content seems very, very elusive. It is there, but then I don't know how to hold on to it. That's what everybody will say. But here, this as one refines one's growth, as one commits more and more to one's growth, something interesting happens. There is a more of a understanding and this about what this happiness is, what this contentment is, what this quote unquote enlightenment is. There is more of an understanding. And how does that understanding play out? It's very interesting because one is finally able to see the connection between the fulfillment of one's desires and the rise in the barometer called happiness. So one is able to see that. And one is also, with the help of Vedanta Shastra, able to see that this connection is a false connection. Because as soon as one desire is fulfilled and I am at peace, no sooner than that happens, the next desire comes along and says, but I don't have this. First, one wants an offspring. Oh, I want an offspring. Okay, now you have a child. Yeah, but who knows whether the child will turn out to be a dunce and not study. Oh, but the child is studying very well. And the child is no longer a child, now grown up. The son or daughter is very, very happy and studying very well. Yeah, but what about job? Okay, job also they got. No, no, no. What about marriage? Marriage also happened. Yeah, but they married beneath them. They should have married somebody else. Like this, all the desires keep coming and coming and coming, denying one the opportunity to understand that the connection between the desire fulfillment and contentment is a very ersatz connection. It's a false connection. It relies on something so temporary and whimsical, such as raga and dvesha. Strong preferences, raga; strong prejudices, dvesha. So this is not the key to happiness. One finally understands, thanks to how far we have come in the Bhagavad Gita. We understand this, that the key to happiness is to unhitch from following the raga dveshas, because being a slave to the raga dveshas and following them all the time is just going to lead to misery. It may lead to happiness in the beginning for 3 seconds, and after that it is total misery. One understands this. Then again the intrigue around how come somebody is happy all the time increases. The increases. How come they are not fulfilling their desires and they are still happy? And my happiness seems to come and go. And yes, I am on a path of karma yoga. Yes, I am doing what I'm supposed to do. And yes, I am much more contented than I was before I entered Vedanta. All this is true. But I don't consider myself established, so to speak, in this knowledge. I don't consider myself uh, fully there yet. And what is this there is going to be unpacked in a series of very interesting and wonderful verses with very nice imagery. and how to get there is also going to be talked about towards the close of this chapter. So we have come a full circle here, where from where we started. Where we started was with Arjuna's sorrow in the beginning of the second chapter, and that sorrow gave way to wisdom of seeking in Lord Krishna a teacher, and then the teacher gives the vision of the Atma as free of all afflictions, and the teacher also gives a lifestyle to lead that is in conducive with the vision to be gained. And it's a very funny gain, as we know. It's a gain of that which is already gained. So it's an as though gain, really. It's an as though gain. And in this as though gain, what is there? It is just the recognition of the self as free of all sorrow and fear. And so that recognition is the so called gain. It's the gain of something that's already gained. Because the sojourner is you, the destination is you. There is no destination outside of yourself at all. And so, therefore, this understanding makes one crave for a committed lifestyle which is in conducive, which is in keeping with this knowledge. And that lifestyle is to withdraw from constantly pursuing these finite ends in the form of strong preferences and prejudices. By allowing these to drop and focusing solely on one's own spiritual and emotional maturity. And that is the Gita's definition of success. The Bhagavad Gita's definition of success is not the worldly definition of success. In the world, the definition of success is the extent to which I am able to fulfill my desires, I am considered successful. That is the commonly accepted definition of success in the life of a human being. But in the Bhagavad Gita, it is completely different. It's the opposite, in fact. The Bhagavad Gita's definition of siddhi or success is the extent to which you are free of being enslaved by these ragas and dveshas, these prejudices and preferences that drive your life. You are able to be free of them, and therefore you know you can be contented even without them. That is the emotional maturity, that is the spiritual growth, that is ultimately the definition of success in the Bhagavad Gita. To this end, what do I have to do? I focus solely on self growth. So, what do I have to do? Two things I can do. I can drop everything and then go for sannyasa. Oh no, that's just too drastic. What about chocolate cake? What about ice cream? And what about parties? And what about so many things that I may want in life? Small, small happinesses. Why you want to deny me? Why I have to become a sannyasi? Isn't there another way? Yes, there is. You can be on you need not be on Moksha Express. Okay, you need not be on Moksha Express, because even the people on Moksha Express have to deal with their feelings, have to deal with the hurts and the pains of not fulfilling all their desires, of letting the desires drop. They also have to deal with that. And so therefore what? So therefore you dedicate your life to solely just growing out of the raga dveshas. That is called karma yoga, because you focus totally on self growth. So every relationship you can have, no problem. You can be married, you can have children, you can have friends, you can have parties, you can have your cake, ice cream, whatever you desire, no problem. But then all these pursuits subserve emotional growth and spiritual growth, subserve the discovery of yourself. And so in the sense that these relationships are for self growth. That's what is made very, very clear. So if you are on a path of karma yoga, then what happens? You are ready to lose every argument at home. Why? Because you are not interested in winning the argument. You are interested in winning over the raga dveshas. You should be able to, you should be able to let go of every argument. Oh, then it is so difficult how to do that. And also, who, especially if it's a married couple, the question comes, who should not argue first? Who should give up the argument first? But this is very interesting because here I am participating in all the relationships. I have a job. I have, I'm participating in all my relationships, but with a new and an interesting twist. I'm not participating in them as before. I let go. Whenever there is a big block in fulfilling anything that I want, then I just let go. Of course, the exception is parenting. I mean, if you have children, you have to parent them. That is that. So sometimes you have to be have boundaries, etc., etc. But that is an exception. Generally speaking, you are allowing yourself to grow out of the dependency of needing to win an argument, to grow out of the dependency of wanting certain things a certain way. Otherwise, you are not able to even start your day. That is the growth. So all this has been covered. The second chapter is complete. It's the complete vision and the way of life is complete. And Ishvara is talked about and bringing Ishvara into one's life because otherwise it is difficult to do this on one's own. And so Ishvara, the cause of the universe, is brought in as an altar of surrender where the raga dveshas are surrendered at the feet of the Lord, just like that small demon Apasmara at the foot of Lord Dakshinamurti. That is the collective unconscious. And so similarly, all the raga dveshas arising from this one's unconscious are able to be surrendered at the feet of the Lord because one is helpless. One needs help letting go of following the desires all the time. One needs to let go. And then so therefore one takes the help of Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the doer, and Bhagavan is the giver of the results of action. I understand I have no say over the results of action. And so Bhagavan alone is there. And so, therefore, what? So, therefore, I let go and I allow myself to grow. So, this is Karma Yoga. All this has been explained in great detail. In fact, there is nothing more to explain. And Lord Krishna thought he's going to have a little coffee break. And then this question comes no sooner than he is ready to take a sip of his coffee. But then this question comes. What is this question? This question is very interesting. Arjuna recognizes that this coming and going happiness is something which is very ephemeral, and there are people who have understood the truth of themselves, and they are in this place all the time. And he even coins a word. It is not Lord Krishna's word. It is the word Sthita Prajna is the word of coined by Arjuna. स्थिता प्रतिष्ठिता अहमस्मि स्थिता प्रतिष्ठिता अहमस्मि परब्रह्म इति प्रज्ञा यस्य सः. Adi Shankara helps us in unpacking what Sthita Prajna is. He unpacks this for us. Very, very interesting. And then he says Sthita Prajna means Sthita. Sthita means that established. What? Pratisthita. Sthita means pratisthita. Established fully. In what? Aham param brahma asmi iti prajna. Established completely and fully in the knowledge I am nothing but Brahma. I am nothing but but Brahman. I am Brahman iti prajna, this kind of a knowledge for whom it is totally established is called sthita prajna. Then the Bhashya continues, Tasya ka bhasha. How does such a person move in the world? Arjuna wants this to recognize something, to recognize such a person by the external characteristics, how they move, how they talk, how they walk. And in the last class, I said, if this definition of Sthita Prajna, we have certain ideas, spiritual romanticism. So, if the definition of the Sthita Prajna is anybody in orange, that's a very dangerous definition because it includes a prisoners who are also in orange jumpsuit. It includes these construction workers. It includes guards which help children cross the road going to school in the morning. It includes all kinds of things because orange stands out. So that is not a correct definition at all. And so, if that is not a correct definition, then what is the definition? This is what Arjuna wants to know. Because we all have some kind of ideas. Perhaps the person talks slowly, perhaps the person talks fast, and then to increase these myths, we also have people, religious leaders who parade in certain ways. They have certain what should I say, presentation of themselves. They will have some people who are following them to show that they have a following. They'll have some people who are attending to them all the time. Some of them even say, I have myself seen in Rishikesh on Lakshman Jhula, one self-proclaimed Mahatma, and everybody said, "Oh, he is so much in a trance that he doesn't even eat. We have to feed him." And so there were two ladies on either side, giving him chapati, sabji, and all kinds of things. They were giving him rice and flat bread, all these things. And nicely, he would put his head on this side and eat, and put his head on that side and eat. But he is actionless, supposedly. So all these kinds of, this makes it very intriguing, and one doesn't know. One doesn't know at all. And some people say they don't talk. They don't talk in front of you. That's all. As soon as you are gone, they talk. In fact, they talk about you. And and so this way, how to recognize a person of self-knowledge becomes a very important question in everybody's heart. And so here, Adi Shankara first unpacks the word sthita prajna, and then he says ka bhasha kim bhashanam vachanam katham asau paraihi bhashyate. How does he or she speak with others? How do they speak with others? And what is the manner of the speech? This is exactly Arjuna's question, and we've seen the question before, so in detail. That's why I'm just going with the bhashya this time. And so, how do they talk? And then समाधिस्थस्य समाधिस्थस्य समाधिस्थः समाधौ तिष्ठति इति समाधिस्थः तस्य समाधौ स्थितस्य का भाषा. The one who is a contemplative person. Sthitaha means remaining. How is the person's demeanor who is remaining all the time unswervingly in contemplation? A contemplative sage, how does that person talk? Who is one who is steady in this knowledge of the self? How do they sit? How do they walk? Sthitadhihi. Sthitadhihi means whose buddhi is established. Sthita prajnaha swayam va किं प्रभाषेत किं प्रभाषेत. How do they speak? Kim asita. How do they talk? Asanam vrajanam tasya katham. How do they move? How do they move? How do they sit? How do they talk, walk, etc.? And then Adi Shankara talks about what is the purport of this question. Sthita prajnasya lakshanam anena shlokena pritchati. Kaha pritchati? Arjuna pritchati. Arjuna asks. What does he ask? Sthita prajnasya lakshana. By this verse, what is he wanting to know? He is wanting to know lakshana. Lakshana means the characteristics of the one who is steadfast in the knowledge of the self as free of sorrow. How to know this? How to know this person? And then Adi Shankara gives a little bit of an introduction to the coming verses. Yaha hi aditah eva sanyasya karmani jnana yoga nishtayam pravrittah yah cha karma yogena tayoho sthita prajnasya prajahati iti arabhya अध्याय परिसमाप्ति पर्यन्तं स्थित प्रज्ञ लक्षणं साधनं च उपदिश्यते. Beginning from the next verse, this is what he says here. Beginning from the next verse. What is the next verse? Prajahati yada kaman. We'll see the next verse also. So beginning from the next verse, and right up to the end of the chapter. Adhyaya means chapter. Parisamapti paryantam, until the end of the chapter. Sthita prajnasya lakshanam sadhanam cha upadishyate. Upadishyate means is instructed. What is instructed? Sthita prajnasya sadhanam lakshanam cha. There is instruction regarding the characteristics of the one who is steadfast in the knowledge, and also what it takes to attain this knowledge is given. And for whom? For two kinds of people. Yaha hi aditah eva sanyasya karmani jnana yoga nishtayam pravrittah. So for two kinds of people, this section covers two kinds of people. It addresses the person who has renounced everything and who has grown into this knowledge with the help of Vedanta Shastra attained from the Guru. And for such a person who is, how do they live? So for such persons, it is the characteristics of the contemplative person. Aditaha means right from the beginning. Sanyasya karmani, having renounced all action. Jnana yoga nishtayam, the one who abides in jnana yoga. Jnana yoga means jnanam eva yoga. So that abides in this knowledge. So for such person, and then secondly, it also this section also addresses or talks about such people of the second variety. And what is the second variety? Yahacha, furthermore, the one who karma yogena tayohos karma yogena. Karma yogena means the person who is striving to become a jnani and is doing karma yoga and is dedicated themselves to a life of karma yoga, where spiritual growth is of paramount importance to them, and not the actions they do nor the results thereof. And so for such people also this section speaks. So this section is pertaining to two people. One is those who are already established in the jnanam, called jnanis, and the second set of people is who wants to be a jnani. So the jnani wannabe is also covered by this. Because for the jnani wannabe, it becomes a lakshana. For the jnani, it becomes a sadhana. About the jnani, when we talk, it becomes a lakshana characteristic. Sadhana means practice. So for the jnani wannabe, these set of verses serve as a roadmap of how to live in order to live like a jnani, how to change one's lifestyle, what kinds of things should I invite in my life, what kind of practices, what kind of demeanor, etc. And about the jnani, it is just how the jnani lives, the characteristics of the jnani. Very beautiful segue here. And so, upadishyate, both these are taught. And then further he says, सर्वत्र हि अध्यात्मशास्त्रे कृतार्थलक्षणानि यानि तानि एव साधनानि उपदिश्यन्ते यत्नसाध्यत्वात्. Sarvatra he means in all the Shastras, everywhere. Whether you talk of the Upanishad or the secondary works of Vedanta like Atma Bodha, Tattva Bodha, etc. And then what happens? Upadishyante. Upadishyante means are taught in all the Shastras. What is it? What is it that is taught? The means to attain this knowledge. Kritartha Lakshanani. Adhyatma Shastre, in all the spiritual instructions, in all the spiritual Shastras, what is taught in the Shruti, Smriti, Purana, Itihasa, everything. Shruti, primary works, Smriti, secondary works, Purana, mythological stories through which the knowledge of Vedanta is assimilated in a simple manner, and Itihasa, historical slash mythological works, epics like Ramayana, Mahabharata. These are called Adhyatma Shastra. Adhyatma Shastra. So, in all of them, Kritartha Lakshanani Yani Tani Eva Sadhanani Upadishyat. What is the subject matter of all these things? In all of them, the characteristics of the person of knowledge are highlighted. Then the question becomes why? So that they serve as a roadmap for the people wishing to attain this knowledge and live like the jnani. Yatna sadhanatva. That is what it is. And then further he continues, Yani yatna sadhyani sadhanani lakshanani cha bhavanti tani. So the characteristics of the jnani become a ladder for the people who are jnani wannabes. That is all it is. They become a ladder, they become a step by step guide map. How to live, what to do, how to gain this, what to avoid, etc. etc. What are the pitfalls to avoid, etc. And so this becomes a segue not only to the next verse, but to the subject matter of the entire chapter right till the end. Let us see verse 55. Rajahati yada kaman sarvan parthamanogatan atmanyevatmana tushtaha sthita prajnastadochyate. प्रजहाति यदा कामान् सर्वान् पार्थमनोगतान् आत्मन्येवात्मना तुष्टः स्थितप्रज्ञस्तदोच्यते. Between the question and the answer, there is a very big gap, supposedly. And it is very evident. What was the question? I want to recognize the Sthita Prajna walking on the street. How do they walk? How do they talk? What do they eat? What do they do? And this, even though this is easily, these kinds of characteristics are preferred because they are easily objectifiable. You can easily objectify. You can say, oh, this is what it is. Oh, there goes something in orange. And that, I see something orange. And that must be what? Sthita Prajna, that is a person of knowledge. Wrong. And then I see somebody who is talking softly, must be a jnani. Wrong. Because we are looking at the internal demeanor of the person, not the external, not something that gives its way into expression or external characteristics in a discernible, objectifiable way. So therefore, Arjuna's question is not answered directly by the Lord, because that would be futile. And especially if the person already is convinced that I'm going to be able to recognize the Jnani walking on the street, then it is no use arguing with them. So instead, the Lord answers Arjuna's question all right, but answers the spirit of the question, not literally the question itself. Because there are two ways to answer a question. You can answer literally, and certain questions can be answered literally. Where did you keep this thing, whatever it is? Where did you keep the rice? Somebody asks at home. You have just purchased some rice. Then you can say, it's on the counter. It's in this cupboard. Third from the left. It's in the cupboard. In the kitchen. You can tell them. Because this is a literal question which begs a literal answer. That is not the time to ask, deep questions and then answer it. Yes, let's see what the rice symbolizes. Let's see what is the, because there is such a thing called a Prashna Shastra. There is a Prashna, meaning it is a very interesting and a slightly elusive branch of astrology called horary astrology. And the people who specialize in this always are looking at the clock. What time was the question answered? And then numerologically, what that means. So you add the hours, seconds, and minutes and come to a single number. Okay, oh no, that is governed by Rahu. Okay, this is not going very well. And then what does all this symbolize? So everything, they look for signs. And if somebody is able to do it very well, this goes extremely well. But as in every other place, half knowledge is dangerous. Horary astrology is very respectable if it is done properly. In Kerala, they have mastered it. They have mastered the art of Prashna. And then very beautifully it's done. Especially before temple consecrations and all this, we do that. And once I saw in the Anekatti ashram in Coimbatore, it's just so beautiful. So they made a big horoscope. They made the 12 things, blocks in rangoli, in rice flour. They made it. They made the 12 squares just like it looks like the birth chart of a person, South Indian birth chart. And then they asked a small girl to come, 6 years old, and very sweet she was. She was all dressed up for the occasion. And then she was asked to have a lot of flowers in her hand. And then and they just told her, enter any square and then just move around, okay? Just move around the squares. And she thought, oh, this is a wonderful game of hopscotch. First time I'm being this kind of a game of hopscotch. How to do this? And she was very, very sweet and extremely delicate. And then so the pandits, the astrologers who were sitting there, marked the time she entered and marked the house also in which she entered. That became the lagna, the ascendant of this horoscope for the temple. That became the ascendant, the first place where she set foot. Then they also, then the next thing to be fixed is the quote unquote natal guru. And that was done by saying, just jump to any from, okay, now you're standing there, just jump to any other place, any other thing. And then the next place where she jumps, that is where the Jupiter would be. And then they looked carefully. And then whether she spills the flowers in the hand or not, that is also, if she spilled the flowers, that means it is not good, it is retrograde, or it is afflicted in some way. And then like this, they did the chart, and then then they read for this. So this is not the kind of prashna that is being asked here. This is a totally different prashna. This is how to recognize a jnani. But really the jnani doesn't have any external characteristics. So how will Lord Krishna answer the question? And so he does it by taking the spirit of the question. The spirit of the question is, what makes the jnani a jnani? And that is what is responded to in this next verse of the Bhagavad Gita, verse number 54, chapter 2. And then, no, I seem to be one behind all the time. 55, chapter 2. So, Sthita Prajnaha Tada Uchyate. The person is called Sthita Prajna then. Tada then. Uchyate is called, is understood as. Sthita Prajna is understood as, a person is understood as a Sthita Prajna only then. Then that means what? There must be some conditions. And so what are the conditions? Two conditions are given. Condition number 1. Prajahati yada kama. Yada, when. Prajahati, the person, prakarshena jahati, gives up. Parityajyati. Yada, yasmin kale. At which time? When? I mean, it's not about, this doesn't happen in a day. This happens gradually. Gradual dropping of the desires. And then what happens? Then the person finds themselves as having cast off. Cast off the desires must not be taken literally. Okay, Prajahati, and gives up. It's not taken literally. Cast off, has some kind of a force which seems to be unattainable by many people. So cast off is more, even though it's expressed this way, the way it happens is more of a dropping off, a withering of the desires. Like like the blossoms on a tree. They just wither. They just drop. When the flower is, the flower just drops. The petals just drop. And sometimes it's very beautiful because you have a whole road lined with colorful petals. So the blossoms just drop. So this must be understood more in the sense of a dropping than in the sense of giving up. Because the word giving up implies an agent that is giving up. And the agent, every agent is powered by desire. So there is the desire to give up, and then you give with the help of the desire to give up. The desire to give up makes you give up this, that, this, that, this, that, this, that, this, that. All right? Then what happens? Then you are left with the desire to give up. Then you have to have another desire to give up, this desire to give up. Then you have to have another desire to give up, the desire to give up, the desire to give up, the desire. Then one finds oneself in a infinite regress. Therefore, there is no agency here. That's why I prefer the metaphor of dropping. And this is how Pujya Swamiji would also talk about this. Because otherwise the verses become kind of meaningless, because you just think of, it's just so harsh, and it just seems like, oh, I have to overcome this desire, and then you become a Vishwamitra. You know Vishwamitra, right? Who is Vishwamitra? Vishwamitra was a king, and then he just went to the ashram of another sage. He had a retinue of hundreds of soldiers, and he just took them to the ashram just for a little rest. And the Vasishtha, the sage there, welcomed all of them. And even though it was well past lunchtime, a wonderful lunch was served. And Vishwamitra was blown away. How did you do that? I didn't even see the fire sticks being carried. I didn't see the fire being lit. Nothing. All this food, where did it come from? And the sage points to a cow. This is a wish fulfilling cow. And this is called Kamadhenu, wish fulfilling cow. And Vishwamitra is a bad guest, because what does he say? Can I have the cow? And in teenage language, having a cow means having some kind of a, for lack of a better expression, beef, like some kind of a pet peeve. But here he literally wanted to have the cow. I want the cow. Give me the cow. And the sage says, you can take the cow, but she is only commandeered by somebody who has completely let go of their desires. Totally. It's very interesting. Only it's very metaphorical too. A desireless person can command a wish fulfilling cow, because then the desires will not be misused. That was the idea. So then he says, okay, then what do I have to do? I have to become desireless? I am going to be more desireless than you. Isn't that a desire now? And so he takes himself off somewhere in the Himalayas and does prachanda tapas. Prachanda means very, very fierce tapas. And then all the celestials, the story goes, look at him. And then they say he's not quite qualified, because this knowledge of oneself as a desireless person, or the person who is unaffected by the desires, is not gained by suppression of the desires, but by a growing out of them. And therefore, let us create a little test and see how he does. A nymph, a celestial nymph by the name of Menaka, was summoned. And then she just was asked to go in front of him and just dance with her anklets and all the bells and whistles and all her jewelry. Very beautiful. After all, she's celestial, so she has to be literally out of this world. And Vishwamitra says, no, some noise, anklets, bells. No, I shouldn't open the eyes. But then there was this wonderful cologne she had put, so he took a peek with one eye. And then she was so beautiful, he opened both the eyes. And then it was all over. Instead of Om Namah Shivaya, he heard himself say, "Oh damsel, will you marry me?" That's what happened. Will you marry me? And of course she said, yes, no problem. And then there was Tapo Bhanga. Tapo Bhanga means the tapas was interrupted. And then, of course, he lived a married life for some time, and then he came back to the tapas. This time, older and wiser. Both older and wiser. He returns to the tapas. Then finally, he becomes a rishi. He becomes a Rajarshi, he becomes a rishi, he becomes a sage. But then, by the time he becomes a sage, he no longer wants the cow that fulfills all the desires. This is the thing. And so, it's not about this harsh kind of tapas. Even though even that is a kind of a spiritual romanticism, wanting to stand on one leg till the cows come home, and wanting to do this, wanting to do that, wanting to go off somewhere far and never be around a single human being. But you are a human being, aren't you? Yes. And so what if you are not around any single human being? You are with yourself. Can you live with yourself? That is the question. Now, in Oregon, a few years back, I think somewhere, I don't know where it is, we'll have to find out. There is one new kind of retreat that is being offered. And this is called, what is it called? It has a name, I forgot. But basically, it is called the Darkness Retreat. So there is some cave-like rooms and structures, and then you literally enter a cave and don't come out for 3 days, for 5, however long you can stand yourself. You don't come out. and there is no light at all. You live in the pitch dark, morning, day, and night, morning, noon, and night. You live in the pitch dark, and then food is provided for you, and then there is some kind of a again, when the food comes, the light doesn't come into the room, and it just comes, and the food is just provided. 3 meals a day are provided, and the rest of the time, no phones, no internet, of course, no light, nothing, no electricity. And I'm told there is a switch, if you really want to turn it on, and if you really go crazy, but so that you don't keep turning it off and on like a mad person, there is a child, what is that, guard to that switch, so that you, in the dark, you can you cannot suddenly just feel it and turn it on if a little scurrying mouse scares you. And so, so therefore, this new kind of retreat where celebrities, of course, celebrities only will go to such things first. Celebrities are going and then having some, what kind of experiences we don't know, but some kind of experiences. And what is that place called? Sky Caves Retreat or something like that. And so this is the kind of an extreme way of doing things. And this knowledge is not extreme. It is you. You are not extreme. And if we suppress all the desires, it is not overcoming them. They will come out with a vengeance. If not in this life, in the next life, they'll come out in a vengeance. This is about interrogating the desires, having a cup of chai with the desires, examining the desires, unpacking them and looking at them and saying, how come you're so stubborn? It is like looking at them. It is like slowly training them. Imagine it's like you are in a with a house full of puppies. What are you going to do? One is climbing all over you, the other one is walking here, walking there. You have to slowly discipline them, lovingly discipline them, because they don't understand when you scold them. They are puppies. Even dogs don't understand. They don't speak your language. They don't know anything. And yes, you can make them feel guilty for 2 minutes, but then they're back at it. So you have to slowly and lovingly discipline them. You have to manage them. And you have to make them not quarrel with one another. And it takes a lot of finesse, lot of discrimination, viveka, lot of vairagya, because while you are growing up these motherless puppies, what do you have to do? You have to stop doing all other things you want to do, because this becomes mostly a full-time job of taking care of all these things, all these wailing, crying puppies. They all want attention. They all want to be loved. How are you going to do this? This is exactly like working with the desires. It's a process. It's not about just suppressing them and putting them somewhere in a dark cave. And that is not what it is. It is about looking at them with a lot of compassion and love. All the compassion and love that you can muster, you look at them. Not with self-loath, not with self-judgment. It is not going to work. And so that is, even though it says prajahati, the one who has forcefully given up, not force not in the sense of exerting the force of agency, force in the sense of by the sheer force of one's growth of character, one's emotional growth. This is the idea. So prajahati yada kaman, when the person is desireless, gives up the desires, allows them to drop. How many desires I have to give up? Quickly tell me. Sarvan, all of them. None of them should hook you. The desires are there, they are not gone, but they do not have the power to hook you. They do not have the power to move you and hook you. They are there. In fact, they become vibhutis. You can enjoy them. Fulfilled, they are okay. Not fulfilled, also they are okay. Like somebody who is not very particular. They just want something hot to drink. They're not very particular if they have tea or coffee. They're not very particular. So, what will you have? Oh, give me some coffee. No, sorry, we don't have coffee. We only have tea. Okay, no problem. This is how, for the person of knowledge, all the desires are. It's not that the wants disappear, but they are as good as disappeared. Because even though they may be there, they do not exert a force on the person, they do not trouble the person. So this is different from suppression or even suspension of the desires. This is working with them so that their hold is released. So the desires no longer bind me to various actions and I don't seek things anymore because of the desires. That is the person of knowledge. And so, so when must the desires be given up? When should the desires be given up? Manogatan kaman yada prajahati. First condition. Manogatan means even as the desire arises as a fancy in the mind. Oh, right now, a wonderful movie sounds very nice. This is exactly what I want to unwind and relax. And then you flip the channels, and nothing that you want is playing. Nothing that you want is playing. All of them you find boring or whatever it is not to your liking at all. Nothing you want is playing. And then one is disappointed. So that is the trajectory of how the desire is followed. But for the jnani, let's say the thought arises, oh, a movie sounds very nice. Immediately to that thought one doesn't attach. That thought comes and goes, just drops like the blossoms. Just drops. Oh, a movie is a wonderful idea. Full stop. Gone. Gone with the wind. Then, of course, because all desires come in the form of thoughts. That's how it is. It first arises in the mind in the form of a thought. Then, if you entertain the thought, if you give it, if you give it a place to sit and say, oh, that's interesting, tell me more, then it becomes a fancy. Then that fancy, if you entertain a little more, give it something to eat and nourish the fancy, then it becomes a full-fledged raging desire. So the desire also goes from subtle to gross. So when the desire is in the subtle form, we don't even call it karma. It is more of a fancy, it is more of a thought. It's a thought. We can call it a desire thought, a desire-filled thought. But there is no action yet. There is not even the painting of the contours and the outlines of the desire yet. And there is not the planning. How will I get this? Where will I go? What will I do to fulfill this desire? There is no planning. There is no sankalpa. There is no roadmap yet. When all that is in place, then it becomes a full-fledged desire. But here the jnani is so clever, and because of past experiences and also because of the force of the knowledge sitting in the heart, the jnani is able to just think and let go, think and let go, think and let go. We don't have power over the thoughts. We do not know what the next thought is going to be. But whatever it is, when it comes, we can just say goodbye. The one who is able to recognize the desire in the form of a subtle thought and then let it go when repeatedly is the person of knowledge. First condition. Then the second condition, Atmani eva Atmana tushtaha. Tushtaha, contented. How contented? Atmani, Atmana, Atmani eva. Contented in oneself, contented by oneself without needing any external props. No other person, no other handheld devices, iPad, iPod, I this, I that, and nothing. iPhone, nothing. No devices, no internet, And the person who is able to, in a sense, generate their own entertainment. Why? Because they are contented to begin with. So they don't need to be entertained by any other entity or any other object in the universe. You don't even have to be stargazing. You don't even have to be looking at a peaceful meadow of cows in order to be happy. You don't have to be listening to, there is some sound with which people go to sleep. What is that called? Um noise, white noise.
What
You
nice.
don't need white noise. You don't need anything in order to be just happy, because that happiness is centered on you, one already has found out, and so one is not clutching at external measures, at external, even the subtlest of external things. Oh, I want to see the sunset, I want to see the sunrise, I want to go here, I want to go there. Nothing. So if you put such a person in the sky caves retreat, what is that? Dark room retreat, they are unfazed. Do they want to go there? Not particularly. But if you put them there, they're not coming out, tearing their hair out in clumps. And so this is exactly what is that? Uh, the second criterion of the jnani. First one, the one who is unaffected by the desires they have, and the one who has no inclination to fulfill the desire, even if it arises as a fancy in the mind, the one who can gladly give it up, and the one who is contented being themselves by themselves. And more we'll see next week. ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ. Here is a question. It is more often that my keeping quiet happens to become the flash point. So it's not about winning an argument, but the trouble is because I keep quiet. How should I interpret this? Very good question. So it's not about winning the argument, but it is the opposite is the problem, keeping quiet. Yeah, well, then that means that perhaps you need to speak up a little more, and perhaps that is what is needed right now for the self growth. All right, yeah. So that's going to be interesting. So keep me posted how that goes. Om Tat Sat.